Okay, so we've been talking a lot about some of our rock stars this morning.
We have.
Our favorite rock stars in the world. And Clapton has recently come under a lot of heat.
Yes.
And it's a little strange because it's stuff he said in 1976.
It's been a while.
So we were like, wow, that's weird. So that started a conversation on who's next. Because this does happen. We're fully aware, people, some of these artists have done some reprehensible things. We'll get into that a little bit, but does that destroy the art? Is the music void and no longer good? What is responsible? The artist in this,
right.
this aspect? And Clapton in particular, he has repeatedly apologized. Right?
I mean, he basically said that he hated who he was then, which I think is a pretty good apology. Hey, I was super wrong. I've changed. I was also on heroin and alcohol and cocaine. Not that excuses it, but, I think it's something for him to point to and say, hey, I was able to change.
And this is something, if you don't know, this sort of started when Clapton and Van Morrison just had a sort of an anti-lockdown is how it's being tagged. But all the money they're raising is, the idea of it is to help artists and musicians that are struggling right now, because all live music has been pretty much shuttered across the UK, Europe, Asia, the US, the world. And they are sort of terrified, and a whole collective of artists, that live music will not be the same ever again. We actually have a whole video coming out soon too about concerts and whatnot in the future, so it's pretty fascinating. But yeah, so that's sort of, and then that sort of, people are dredging up this thing that Clapton said in a concert in '76.
Yep.
And I've watched the music's really good actually. I was like, wow, this is cool. They're playing in a river and everything, but wow, what is he saying? Oh, that's horrible. He says he's horrible. He has a sort of racist tirade where he goes on about who's wanting you to vote for in this election that doesn't matter because it was in 1976 now for somebody running for something in England. But it was some bad stuff he said. It was not good.
No, it was horrible. Yeah, I mean, what he said was definitely.
But then they got us thinking, he's getting pulled down right now. What other artists in history are active or alive that are going to come next? And Jimmy Page came to mind immediately.
Yes.
Do you like Jimmy Page?
I mean, he's okay. Yes, I like Jimmy Page. We all love Jimmy Page.
I mean, we were laughing about it, and this is, it's not, and this isn't all funny, but we like to have joy and stuff. If you write Stairway to Heaven, you pretty much get a pass on anything you do. We said, you could murder the Queen, and it's okay. It's I Stairway to Heaven, you're going free. But no, Jimmy Page is a notorious rock star.
Right.
From in the 70s.
Yes.
He was he was doing lots of drugs, having lots of sexual adventures. And
you could hear a lot of those drugs in some of those live performances.
Yeah, the Madison Square Garden one.
Oh yeah.
Oh, we have a camera crew here. Oh my God, what are you doing? I remember watching that even as a kid, for the first time when it came on TV. I was like, wow, it's not as good as I thought he would be, Mom. The record's better. Well, she didn't know either. My mom was a sweet.
It's a lot of pressure playing for all those people.
He was nervous. Right. No, but there's the stories that go back to Jimmy Page having relations with very young women,
yes,
14, 15, and these were sort of the young groupies was their name, and you can get on the internet, you can find them. We obviously, and this was sort of a common thing, and these girls were at a lot of the shows in New York and at the Garden, would travel around with the band. And it's not a good thing, but it was happening.
Right.
And some of these same girls were with another one of our heroes, David Bowie.
David Bowie.
I'm a David Bowie junkie. I love him. I actually still have all of his CDs and his records. I can't get rid of them. I've gotten rid of all my other, okay, I don't need the Bush CD anymore. I'll throw this away or something. I still love Bush. But you can't throw away Hunky Dory.
No.
It's just weird. It feels sacrilegious.
Right.
But he had that phase. Well, besides the sex with the young people, young women and young boys, but he's not under the target hairs right now.
Right. Do you think that passing away maybe affords you a little shielding for some of those things?
I think it puts a permanent force field up around you in a lot of ways. Not permanent, because there will be the way our culture is right now. They might be chiseled in there and destroy him somehow, which would be devastating, I think, to young artists trying to develop their ability. And you would never see Labyrinth, which is one of the greatest Jim Henson type weird movies with David Bowie in that, and wonderful. But no, and then he had that other questionable phase of the Thin Duke.
Thin Duke.
where he's denied it now as like just a character you play.
Right.
I mean,
Performance art kind of thing.
you've seen it. I mean, it was very fascist.
Yep.
Very sort of neo alt-right would be the term of today to apply to it. You see his image with the white peroxided black, combed back hair, the sort of the suits, the tucked in shirts, very different than Ziggy Stardust
Right.
and all the characters before. And this lasted that 75, 76 range. Weird. It's
Almost as if there was a political, cultural climate.
there was something in England happening, maybe. And then you can compare like Kanye West, right, with this whole MAGA thing, and like Kanye West is supporting Donald Trump. It's like, what is happening in the universe? He has lost his mind, is what everyone was saying. And then he'll never be an artist again. No one will respect him. And like, don't get me wrong, I thought he was crazy too for a minute. And then, but part of what let's look at Kanye. We didn't even plan on talking about Kanye.
This is a total.
But no, let's talk about Kanye, because he is. You can love or hate Kanye for what he represents, but he's brilliant as a composer and artist.
That's part of what he does. He is a little crazy. He's out there. I mean, I don't think he'd be the same Kanye. I don't think he would have had the same success if he wasn't just a little all over the place and a little bit out there.
From Kanye West back in with George Bush president, George Bush hates black people, to like I'm supporting Donald Trump.
Right.
This is the whole of not getting political, but just as an artist, he is that way. He is firing at all cylinders, shooting everywhere. We don't know where he's going to land next, but that is part of what fuels his great creative energy within his music.
Yes.
And love or hate, the idea of Kanye, if you actually dig deep and listen to his music, it's really good. And most of it's really good. Some of it's not, but at least takes the shot. But anyway, back to Bowie. So he's iconic beyond iconic, and can his legacy survive those gaffes?
Right.
And if we start drudging it up, it's terrifying. So we get to our other heroes of let's talk about Chuck Berry.
Chuck Berry's pretty questionable.
I mean, questionable stuff, but we love Chuck Berry. There's a Chuck Berry guitar back there. That is the Chuck Berry guitar behind us. He revolutionized electric guitar playing for all of us here, and there wouldn't be half of the music that we love today, I think, without Chuck Berry. But he was not a nice person to women.
No,
not nice at all. James Brown has his own issues there as well, and there's that great interview with James where he's lost his mind on. I feel
he's just like.
Because I feel like if you were a young artist, let's say the lead singer to Maroon 5 had this crazy rant like that on an interview, he is over. He is over today. He does not have the historical legacy. Sugar's not going to save you. You have to have James Brown's Machine and be in Rocky 3. I think was that one with Drago.
4.
3 was with Mr. T.
Mr. T.
Thank you. Yeah,
that's right. Rocky
that's
4.
right. God, great. Go back and watch Rocky's wonderful, wonderful movies. But then you get into let's even go into our biggest heroes of rock and roll history ever, Elvis Presley. I mean, how old was Priscilla when he married her?
Gosh.
When he started dating him, was she 14?
I suppose
15,
so.
Something. She was young. And Jerry Lee Lewis married his, I think, 13, 14-year-old cousin. That did sort of ruin his career.
It did.
In England, when that got out in England when he was touring, it was a devastating blow to him. And it probably should have been. It's weird.
Yeah.
But then the whole, this is the idea. What do you think as far as does this void your art?
Man, it's such a tricky question. I think if you look at how things are today, you would think maybe it does. But all the things we just listed, think about how different the landscape of the thing we love, which is this crazy rock and roll music, how different it would all be if we just wiped away all these contributions, because the people who created them, their personal flaws, we had to judge it through that lens. I think also part of the issue there is there was no internet back then, so all you saw was the art. You know what I mean? The thing that was out there to the masses was just the art.
And you didn't even know if the artist was white or black or
right.
Latino half the time back then until you're like, oh my goodness, Thelonious Monk is not who I thought he was. Or
Yeah. I mean, no one woke up in the 70s and said, "Oh my God, Jimmy Page is on heroin and he slept with a 14-year-old." No one woke up to their phone shoving it in their face.
I did read the biography about that when I was probably 12.
Right.
And I was like, I want to be a rock star. Because my parents should have let me read this, but I was a avid reader. No, it is.
Explains.
Things. You go back to rock and roll, like the birth of rock and roll. A lot of people, forget how controversial rock and roll was and how like the radio stations were trying to shut it down. The culture of that time when rock and roll existed was like country and Hawaiian music and Christian music and Dean Martin and Frank Sinatra, who I love, but like because they're kind of rock stars of that genre. But just the rock and roll was like not okay.
No, it
was the churches wanted to shut it down. Everyone wanted to shut it down. The culture, the cancel culture of 1950 was trying to shut rock and roll down.
Right.
Rock and roll, the even word of it, rock and roll is referring also to rocking the bedpost because you're having some good times there. And that was then you get into the whole idea that get coined later, sex, drugs, and rock and roll.
Sex, drugs, rock and roll.
That is, don't get me wrong, I'm not supporting that for the young people out there, but that was the idea of it from even the heroes from the 50s. Up until the 90s and now, don't tell me Guns N' Roses are a goody two-shoe band.
No.
And don't tell me if you're watching these videos that you don't love Guns N' Roses. Everyone loves Sweet Child of Mine and Appetite for Destruction. It changed the landscape of music.
Everything, yeah.
Never mind. Nirvana changed the landscape,
right.
But us as guitar junkies, Sweet Child of Mine is something that just blew us all away. But those guys were not sweethearts.
Not exactly saints.
Metallica were not a bunch of nice guys.
No.
Tool is not a bunch of, oh man, I want my kids to go hang out with Tool back. James Maynard is probably a fun guy to hang out with for my young children there. And Red Hot Chili Peppers too. I think it is weird, like you mentioned the internet earlier, because like those bands are all sort of pre-internet.
Right, even those guys were sort of a little safe, a little insulated, because
Like
you had to really
internet.
dig to find out
funny.
things about them.
I
think that was
not
part
put
of
that
it.
in my brain pan.
I really do, because now we know everything about everyone, and I think that's killed the rock star and the celebrity in some strange way. Anyways,
Because like that pop star now, like Savage Love, Jason Derulo, like he's like a TikTok star, and like he's so clean and like lovely and perfect because he is like represented every minute on the internet, on his phone, following his life around. Number one on the billboards, but rock star he ain't.
Yeah.
So there's no mystique to it.
Right.
Like we look at we're talking about David Gilmour and Clapton's guitar that didn't sell the other day too, and David Gilmour has this mystique to him.
Yes.
But Pink Floyd were not angels either.
What?
I know.
I can't believe you'd even say that.
I know. Let's get into Sid there. Let's go back further. And believe it or not, the Sex Pistols were not the sweetest gents either, and neither were Joy Division, the Ramones, like all these bands like I love. But so where does that leave us today? Can we still listen to Led Zeppelin?
I think we have to just remember history is messy. People make bad decisions.
You sound so smart. Right
I know. Now. History's messy. People make bad decisions. Those are my two. And then, but the thing that is left, their legacy does not have to be totally tied into these poor decisions because people are human. It's this art they created that changed our lives and changed things going forward. And I think that's what we have to kind of focus on.
And I think as an artist too, if you have the opportunity to make amends for what you've done,
absolutely.
Please do that. It's it's okay. It's not embarrassing to I'm bowing to cancel culture or something. Don't do that. Just be like, hey man, I said some stupid stuff in the 70s when I was high out of my mind on cocaine and heroin at a concert. I don't know where I was.
Right.
And they say there's truth to that you were thinking if you said that at all. So I guess there's truth to the fascist tendencies of the character of David Bowie, which you can say is a character. Or
and we're not saying the great art excuses any of those things.
Unless you write Stairway to Heaven.
Right. Hey.
Don't mean to laugh at it.
Everybody's got their line.
But that is the conversation.
Yeah.
We're curious, because I was even, we were talking about this before. I'm going back to Beethoven and Schumann and Wagner. The soundtrack for the fascism that arose in Germany, and they used it. He wasn't alive, obviously, but his niece was friends with the leaders of the Third Reich. His great niece.
But he's also responsible for Lord of the Rings in a lot of strange ways.
So
it's just all right.
No,
Yeah.
one, and he's responsible for like modern composition in movies and but he was a bastard of a person. Like Wagner's not a nice guy. Like he didn't have the chance to apologize because I don't think he would have because he was kind of a jerk. I was going to say a worse word.
Yeah.
No, I have no problem with let's just talk about it historically. Yeah, but who cares about Wagner right now? We don't talk about. He doesn't play guitar, so he doesn't matter. To let us know seriously your thoughts on it. We are curious. We're exploring this ourselves. It's not.
Yeah, we don't have the answers. We're just talking.
No, we don't. Because it means a lot to me. Because I have young children, I want them to listen to these great artists. Yep. But they're flawed artists, obviously. But the art is there, and I want them to hear it, but I want them to be aware of everything. We're very honest with my kids. But what do you get this thing? Yeah, let us know. What do you think, Jonathan?
I just told you, but we really do want to hear what you guys think. So please let us know in the comments. Keep it nice and civil. I know these things can get heated. Please hit like and subscribe if you have not already. Hit the bell so you don't miss our videos in the future. Thanks for hanging out with us. We'll see you next time.